You know what? I just felt like talking, I think. Um, and I was on my way home and I was driving and I kind of, you know, something just popped up to mind. And I don't really know how I'm going to list this video. I don't know if I'm going to list this video as a story time or if I'll just give it a title. But it is a story about a time when something took place. But then it raises a lot of questions because this is something that actually happened when uh, I was like 15 years old. Okay, so I was 15. So we're talking 30 years ago. One of the questions is how much abuse is too much abuse for you to take in lieu of hurting your friend's feelings? That's kind of a wild question, isn't it? Like, how much hurt should you endure to keep from having your friends' feelings be hurt? So I just want you to sit with that for a minute. And then I'm going to tell my story, okay? And I think we will put this up as a story time. We'll put it up as a story time, and maybe we'll just get a dialogue actually going, okay? Because there's a couple things that are actually going to be touched on in this. Okay, so nothing said. I have a friend, a very good friend, who she was 10 years older than me. Okay, so she's 10 years older than me. I've been friends with her since I was about 11 or 12. I have known her and her family basically all my life. Her mother and my grandmother used to actually work together. So I know her and I know her family. Like I said, we became friends when I was about 11 or 12 years old. Her mother actually put us together. She was just coming home from college at that point, and her mother said, you two have so much in common. And she kind of put us together. We both love music. We both love the arts, and so many different things. So we became friends, very fast friends. And um, we just hit it off. And it was so crazy because the age difference was never a thing. And it was never like this big sister type of thing. I mean, that's what we kind of end up calling each other, but that was like years later. We were literally just friends. I was just overly mature for my age. She wasn't immature. I think she always in her head had like the big sister thing going on because she had an older brother and two younger brothers, but they were also close in age that it really didn't make a difference. Here I'm 10 years younger. She taught me lots of things. Lots of things. Like she took me to my first fashion show. My first actual fashion show, Ebony Fashion Fair. She's the first one who took me to the Ebony Fashion Fair, and then I went every year after that until they literally stopped having it. Just that kind of thing, whenever she was always there, and she taught me how to go to restaurants and because there is a specific way to actually go to a restaurant and how to behave. My family didn't do that kind of stuff. These were the things that I did with her. She took me to my first cabaret, all those kind of things. So I guess it was more of like the big sister thing for her, but literally we were friends. It was never a thing, where she felt like I had to look like up to her and respect her. It wasn't like that. We were friends. So all that being said, um, she has three siblings. Two of the siblings are cool. One of the siblings, we were never actually cool. Um, One of the siblings was basically really a jackass, if you will. Always had something smart to say about my homosexuality and this kind of thing. It was always like he was very immature, so it was always this kind of picking thing I know what you're going to be when you grow up. It's all very nasty, very petty, very much needed to be ashamed of himself because if I'm 11 or 12, he's 18, 19. He really needed to be checked. And at one point, he actually did end up being checked. Um, he just had gotten really too happy with the things that he thought he wanted to say. And my grandmother kind of took care of it. And it was, my grandmother shut the shit down before there was going to be an issue. And she basically had let their mother know, child, there will be an issue. Okay. And it's so funny because he wasn't doing anything different than what my family did, which was why I hadn't actually said anything to them because they did the same ignorant shit. You know what I mean? But, outsiders, it's different. So that was that thing. So just keep him over here. Okay. So, he kind of tapered off and, it was one of them things like, okay, well, don't fuck with him because goddamn family's crazy. So that was that. So we didn't have too much problems after that. He just kind of avoided me and I just ignored him. So now let's move forward maybe three, four, almost 5 years. I'm in high school now at this point. And my best friend's mother passes away. All of a sudden, she passes away. Very, very hurtful. And as I can remember back, she's probably one of the first people who actually passed away that I actually gave a damn. Okay. I had people in my family that had passed away. No real big deal. No real connection to them. I've told you all things about my family. But when my best friend's mother passed, I actually felt a void. There was something missing. Like, oh my God, I'm never going to see her again. And I just absolutely loved her. Absolutely loved her. And that was the thing. Because that's when we started to get to spend more time together. Like I said, she's known me all my life. But then when I got my first summer job is when I was actually working. I was only 12. And I was working at their job where her and my grandmother worked. My grandmother didn't work there anymore. But I was working there as a clerk typist and everything. So that's when we got to, she got to see me and say, oh my God, you and my daughter have so much in common. So it was that kind of thing. So she became a major part of my life and I could always talk to her and she never, said anything sideways about my homosexuality or anything like that. And remember, at this point, I'm still a virgin and all of that. So it was just one of those things. I have always been gay, period. There was never any question. You never had to try to figure it out. Child, I told you all before, I've only ever been in a closet to pick out something to wear. That's it. I've always been flamboyant. I've always been all of those things. I never had any type of sexual interaction with a male until literally right before I turned 21 years old. So, none of that was going on. It was just a fact. Everybody knew that kid's gay. That kid's gay. That kid's going to be gay. It is what it is. So, she never made me feel any kind of way about that. Her or her daughter. So, those were like two people that I just absolutely loved. And I could not say that. I can't even say that about my own mother, because there were times when me and my mother just bumped heads and didn't see eye to eye. And it was just like, lady, listen, let me tell you something. This is who I am. And I don't have to make any excuses. I don't have to explain anything to you. I don't have to try to change anything to appease you. It is what it is. Like it, lick it, or love it. And I did that with my own mother. But I never had to do that with her mother. Never had to do that with her mother. Her or there's another friend that I actually acquired once I got to high school. We've known each other basically all our lives. We became friends in high school. Same exact thing with her and her mother. I never had to go through that with her mother. Her mother was one of those that was like, honey, if you don't come on out of the closet, I'm going to grab a rope and tie it to you and drag you out. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But I was like, I'm not in the closet. There's nothing. I mean, I'm just being me. I'm not trying to hide me. I'm just not discussing it. But she was like, you can be you around me, and that's that. So There were a few people who, were on the outside. I didn't have family members like that. No. No, 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 no. So, anyway, moving on. Okay, so let's go back. So, my best friend's mother passes. She's taking it very hard, okay? So, the day of the funeral, you know how you have your, this wasn't even the day of the funeral, I'm sorry, the day before the funeral. Like the 2 days before, there are people that are coming to the house and they're talking and this, that thing, and the other. So, I to this day, I still don't like to go around when there's death. I just kind of shy away. But at any rate, so um, my grandmother had told me, you're supposed to be there for your friend. Whenever things like this happen, you don't go into hiding. You need to be there for your friend. Just to see you will actually help your friend. You're doing it for your friend. So after all of this coming from my grandmother, I eventually go ahead and I walk up to the house. Now, the way their house was, you could actually come in the back or in the front. So I ended up coming in the back way, not in the front way. Now, in the back way, my girlfriend's her bedroom basically was over top of the kitchen, so I could see that the light was on. She was up there, and there was a few of her other friends were actually up in the room, and I could hear them talking. So to the point where it was like summertime, so the window was open. It's like May or so, but I could hear them talking, so I knew even like certain voices, I knew which friends were actually there. So when I knocked on the door, and it was the brother that I don't do actually answers the door, and I says, well, and he's like, yeah, what do you want? Now, keep in mind, there's other friends and people from the neighborhood that are in the house. Yeah, what do you want? And he comes out and he closes the door behind him, like he pulls the door up behind him. See, this is just the type of nasty bastard that he was. And I'm saying, okay, today is really not day because I'm already feeling some kind of way. And I know you're feeling some kind of way because your mother just passed away. So I'm going to give you some respect in that, but I ain't going to take so much of your shit because I know it's shit coming from you. So this is what do you want? And this is why I came up to see my girl. And he looked at me in my face and said, well, she already has some friends here, so why don't you come back later? So I just looked at him. And my first reaction was to tell him, why don't you just kiss my ass? How about that? But I said, no. I said, yeah, all right. And I'm not, because I'm serious. It's one of them things where you're standing like in a Twilight Zone type of situation. Like, is this shit really happening? Like, are you really this low down and dirty and going this extra step to be nasty for what? For what? Like, who are you actually trying to get at? Are you trying to get at her? Are you trying to get at me? What is it really all about? So I went on. I actually walked on off, and I went on about my business. And I told my grandmother what had actually happened. I told her, I said, yeah, this is what happened or whatever. My grandmother was like, what? And I said, but it's not a big deal. I'm not even worried about it. Because one thing that I'm not going to do, I don't kiss no ass, and I don't go nowhere that I'm not wanted. So my ass can actually be kissed at this point, and I'm done with it. And I never returned to the house. I never returned. That was that. I'm done. That's James. That's true life James. That's always been true life James. I don't want to go nowhere where I'm not wanted. He lives there. You live there. Hey, I don't know what to tell you, but you just have to see me outside. So a long time, like literally, when I say years went by. We never discussed this. We never discussed this, and I would never tell her what happened because those two would go at it anyway. He was just a troubled one. He would just go at it with everybody in the family, including mother. He was ridiculous. But I never told her because I just didn't feel it was necessary to hurt her any further. Like, why bring more bullshit to the situation when you're already grieving your mother's death? You already have enough going on. You don't need this extra on your plate. And that's how I felt, even being like 15 years old. I felt that way. So years and years had went by thinking nothing of it, And we just sit, and one day, literally at this point, I was completely grown at this time. Had to moved out of my parents' house, had bought my own house and all of this, and I'm living in my own house. So I'm literally in my mid-20s at this time. Mid-20s, damn near 30. And we're just talking, and she mentions to me one day how her feelings were so hurt because I never showed up in person when her mother passed. She never saw me until the day of the funeral, and she was hurt that I never came up the street to see her. And I had to stand and tell her, this is crazy. And I said, and you've held on to this all these years. She said, yeah, that's the one time that you literally hurt my feelings. And I had to tell her, and didn't know whether she would believe me or not, that was not me, honey. That was not me. I was not trying to hurt your feelings. It wasn't me. Your brother literally stood in the way of me seeing you. And I explained to her what happened. And of course, she became infuriated. She was furious. Furious. And I'm like, and I didn't tell you for this very reason. Look at you. You're all pissed off. You know what I mean? And I mean, their relationship had pretty much gone to shit at that point anyway. They had their own thing, their brothers and sisters and all of that. She loved them, but they just weren't always good. But she was furious. I said, and this is why I didn't tell you. And she was saying, you should have told me. You should have made me know it. I would have tore this fucking head off. I didn't even want to be that person. Like, I wouldn't want to be that person. Even going back, thinking about it now, I wouldn't want to be that person where a brother and sister are literally going head to head in the midst of the passing of their parent, all because of something that happened and you were involved. Because especially her family, they would have very much seen past whatever was going on with them and found a way to be mad at me. That's just the way her family kind of operates. But I was like, I just didn't find it to be worth that. And I said, and I guess it's better that all these years you've been literally mad at me about that than, fucking up your family dynamic. But then I was just, as I was riding today, it just came, all of that just flooded back, and it came back. And that's why I don't like to really go into dark corners. When, sometimes I don't even like to go into my own thoughts, because sometimes it sends me into dark corners, and I'll be sitting around trying to figure out, like, really, are people this hateful? But yes, people are. People are that hateful. They really are. And I don't know. I try not to put it always on a gay versus a straight thing, but there are certain things that people pull with gay people that I don't believe they would ever really pull with another straight person. That happened to be one of those things. I don't think that he would have actually pulled that with one of the other straight girlfriends. Even if he didn't care for him, I just don't think that he would have pulled that. You know what I mean? But it really says something about his character. He's a fucked up person. He's just a fucked up person in general. And he's strange. Strange than a motherfucker, And you just got all this other shit. And and he's a Muslim now. Isn't that cute? You're a Muslim. Again, some of these other religions that really hate gay people and all of that kind of stuff. But we're not going to go real deep into that little situation, because there's more that I can tell you about that. But of course, in the Muslim faith, they don't have any use for your homosexuals, you know. Um, but it floors me how you could sit in hatred like that, especially with a person that has never done anything to you, has never done anything to you. And people could actually sit and be that fucking mean and do things that really have that much of an impact. We're talking years and years and years. And I don't think it was fair to him, to the sister, nor fair to me. You know, you literally put a string, which didn't have to go that way because it could have been a different type of string, to a friendship that had nothing to do with you, all because of what? All because of what? That is a very fucked up person. Very fucked up person. But that's where I'm gonna leave this right here. I would love to know what you guys' thoughts are. Um, Put it down there in the comments. How much hurt and abuse is too much hurt and abuse to actually undergo trying to spare a friend? All right, can't wait to see what you guys have to say. All right, and I'll talk to you guys later.